Hello and welcome to Terraria. My name's Todd, and last time we left off we defeated the golems. We're pretty much in endgame now. This is the post-lunar events, or no, not post, but pre-lunar events, forgive me. This is the just before we fight the lunar events, and pretty much got all we need. Got our demonic specter staff and our magnet sphere. And from here on out, we're gonna go try and fight the lunatic cultist and the lunar events. We're gonna roll that into the Moon Lord, and if we're able to defeat the Moon Lord, then yeah, that is the end of somewhat of this world. Like I said, I will be fighting the optional bosses, but I have a special thing planned for that, and I'm not gonna worry about them until kind of the end of the series. So yeah, that's the major thing. I don't know if our slime is fast enough to outrun the Moon Lord. I'm gonna hope that it is, because we don't really have much of another option. We can try and use our lightning boots, I guess, or we could build railways. So I built this long platform, as you can see, so that'll be our Moon Lord arena. Kind of just prepping for that. Honestly, we're probably going to have more of a trouble with the bloody lunar events than we are the Moon Lord. But we'll find out. The Moon Lord is no pushover by any means. Oh, that's right, I also don't have... Let me grab out a mask. I was going to buy the wings, but I decided to hold off on that. I'm just going to try and use the slime mount first, because I've seen some people have success with it, so... I'm going to hope that I can also have the success with it. We're going to keep using our hood until the Moon Lord, and then we will use the mask. The hood is just better overall, and especially for the lunatic cultist and the lunar events, it will be much better for us. So when we fight the lunar events, our major goal is to fight the Nebula Tower first, and then the Stardust Tower, and then either of the two other towers. So this is the like little cultist event that spawns. It should be noted that we're going to have to fight a boss here, so this little arena is what we're going to fight the lunatic cultist with, and we're going to hope that it's going to be good enough. So yeah, the way you spawn the lunatic cultist is by killing these cultists. So if you're just coming back here to the jungle after you defeat the golem, coming back here to the dungeon after you just defeated the golem, and you accidentally kill these guys, you'll start the lunar events. So do your best not to do that. But we want to start the lunar events. We're going to go ahead and throw out a magnet sphere. Does the magnet sphere not track onto them? That's kind of weird. I never knew that was a thing. Alright, so that summons the lunatic cultist, and he's kind of like a mini boss. Getting ready for the actual boss that is the Moon Lord. So he throws out lots of powerful magic. A lot of his attacks are extremely deadly, so just be aware. That's why we want the hood, is because we'll be able to do a decent amount of damage against him. He also does this, he summons effectively images of himself, and they're pretty deadly too. He also summons a dragon, so yeah, just be aware of that. Ow, that dragon hurts. Ow, I'm taking a lot of damage. The lunar events will not spawn unless you manage to kill the cultists, just a heads up. So yeah, we definitely want to kill the cultists as soon as possible. That dragon I don't think goes away unless you actually manage to kill the cultist himself, so we're just going to focus on the cultist. And our Spectre stuff is doing good, but we're not really doing a whole lot of damage, are we? I have to hope that we manage to do enough damage soon. He is just wrecking us here, though. Okay. We're just gonna kind of have to go in there and face tank a little bit because we need to get more damage coming out. He summoned even more images. And another dragon. Great. As long as we can avoid getting hit without hitting him, should be good. Just keep throwing out those magnet spheres. And we're just kind of tanking his damage, as you can tell. We will not be able to do this with the moon though, so just be aware of that. The images, by the way, are a problem, but they're not a massive problem for us because our attacks hold. So if you had attacks that didn't hold, yes, you could waste them on the images, if you're worried about that. I'm kind of able to just keep talking because even though he's doing a lot of damage to us, we're doing a lot of damage to him, which results in a null situation where we're not really dying, and he's taken forever to kill. This is kind of how the Spectre set is so good. It's because we're able to just face tank a lot of this stuff. Even though we're on expert mode, we're still just able to do so much healing. Let's see, let's get stuff out here. There we go. I do think one of his images does hurt you, and you can kill it. That's what I think we did previously. Let's throw out our magnets here again so we can get some more healing. Almost got him down. We'll be doing a lot more damage because we won't have the hood on when we're fighting the Moon Lord, so that's a massive bonus to us. Come on, we almost got him. I really don't remember him being this difficult. Goes to show I don't remember a lot about this fight, because it tends to end fairly quickly. Except for when you really do it this first time with the Spectre set. It doesn't end as quickly as I would like it to. There we go. Oh, we are in... Okay, so this is the Nebula pillar, so I'm going to try and get rid of these two enemies if I'm able to. I thought the dragon head would despawn. We managed to pick up an item, which is really important, the Arcane Manipulator, or Ancient Manipulator, forgive me. And now a whole bunch of enemies are going to spawn. So we're near one of the Lunar Towers, part of one of the Lunar events. And this is the Nebula Tower. Lots of the enemies here will do massive damage, so just be aware and avoid to the best of your ability. Just keep throwing out spells. Because we're Spectre, I think we should be able to heal through most of it. And even if we did get hit, but just avoid hits. It's the biggest thing, is really avoid hits here. These lunar events are terrible. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to take down the tower's shield. You can see that it's got a shield, like a blue health bar, effectively, above its red health bar. The way you do that is by killing enemies. So that's what we're going to do. So we're just going to kill as many enemies as we can. Some of these enemies are ranged. As you just saw, we got hit there by the shotgun effect. You really want to avoid that. It's much harder to tell what to avoid when you're using the Spectre Staff, but we're going to have to just make do. We just kind of got blinded there. One of the, what they refer to as brain suckers landed on us. They're like little brains, tentacles that just kind of run at you. Super dangerous. But we managed to avoid getting murdered by it. Oh man, let's try to avoid getting murdered by everything else too. Thankfully we managed to take down the Lunacy cultists, so this event will not end even if we die. If we had failed to kill the Lunatic cultists, then it would have ended before we could even really do anything there. Just keep throwing out our attacks. Make sure to throw out your magnet sphere whenever you're able to, because it does give you a lot of healing. So yeah, we just have to kill enough enemies to be able to break down the shield, and then we can kill the pillar itself, and it will drop the items that we need. And like I said, because we're already at Nebula, that's great. We need to kill Nebula and Stardust first, and you do want to do it in the order of what's important to you. So if you're ranged, you want to kill the Vortex pillar first. If you're melee, you want to kill the Solar pillar first. If you're a summoner, you want to kill the Stardust pillar first. Usually, the second pillar you want to kill is always the Stardust pillar, unless you're a summoner. If you're a summoner, the second pillar you want to destroy would probably be the melee pillar? I don't know, maybe ranged. I'm not really sure. Oh, I'm about to die. Oh boy. Oh boy. Lots of damage. Taking lots and lots of damage. And I was killed. That's unfortunate. I don't think the pillar gets its shield back, but yeah, that was bad. I got murdered. Should have been throwing out my magnet sphere more often. Let's see. Okay, so the 4 pillars spawn across the world, and we got the Stardust pillar and the Nebula pillar on this side of the world, on the left side of the world, and we got the Solar and Vortex on the right side of the world. So as I was saying, depending on what class you are, you want to go after your pillar first, because that will allow you to craft your weapons, which your weapons will massively make it easier to defeat not only the Moonlord, but also the rest of the pillars. So we got the Ancient Manipulator from the Cultist, and it looks cool and rainbow, and it's just honestly awesome to look at. But we're going to want to just leave it there for the time being. Once we get some fragments from a pillar, then we'll be able to show off what it does. But we're going to need to go back to the Nebula pillar because we want to kill that one first, because of how the weapons that we can get from those pillars are going to be so much better than anything else we can get. But we're going to have to run past the Stardust pillar in the process, meaning that we're going to take some damage, probably. Stardust pillar is going to kick our teeth out. Lots of new enemies. Each of the pillars has its own themed enemies, so yeah. We're going to see more of those, I'm sure, fairly soon. We're going to try and avoid fighting as many of the Stardust enemies as we can right now. Because like I said, once we get the better weapons from the Nebula pillar, we'll be doing better in general. Okay. Alright. So the weapon I'm going to go after, I could go after the Arcanum, or I could go after the Fist. I've had better luck with the Arcanum, so I think I'm going to go with that. I'm kind of muttering to myself as I'm getting there. Okay, so the shield does not regenerate. That's good. Good to know. I guess it would kind of suck if it did, because that means you'd have to live through the entire pillar, and the Solar pillar is going to absolutely destroy us, by the way. Yeah, we're just gonna probably die to the Solar pillar, and there's not a whole lot I can do about that. Yeah, I think honestly the Solar pillar is probably the hardest pillar to deal with the first time around, and that will become very apparent once we start doing it. I guess I could say what the issue is with that. If you get too far off the ground in the Solar pillar, these worm-like enemies just track onto you, and they do ridiculous amounts of damage. I'm talking like 300 damage a hit. Because it's meant to be the melee pillar, they do just so much damage. So much damage. Okay, gotta keep moving to avoid these balls. Keep getting our health back from enemies. Those teleporting brain-like enemies, those are some of the more deadly enemies because they can not only teleport, but they're also ranged. Very annoying. Very annoying. Yeah, the brain suckers are not so bad, and so staying with their ground when you're fighting with them is fairly easy. Probably a recommended method of fighting them. Yeah, these, what are these called? I was too busy running past them to notice. That's a lot of brain suckers, though. Right. Now. Okay. Nebula floaters. Those are the ones that are a little bit dangerous. There's also an enemy that spawns, like, the floating little balls that we had to dodge a second ago, and those are also dangerous enemies by virtue of that they're ranged. Ranged enemies just tend to be more dangerous in Terraria. Oh boy, these Nebula floaters, I could do without those. Okay. I think it's these guys that have like the shotgun effects. I think those guys might be the ones that summon the little floaty ball thing. I'm not positive though. I'm just gonna want to dodge up and down, back and forth, so we're not getting swamped by melee. How much mana do we have? We have a lot of mana. We're good still. Two of the things you can do with the Magnosphere is you can send it downwards or you can send it upwards, depending on where you are, if you're high up in the air or if you're low. Okay, so the shield just came down. Now we can attack the pillar itself. Once we kill the pillar, these enemies will stop spawning, and we'll be able to collect our loot, which is the major thing. We want to get that loot. So we want to kill that pillar. Focus everything we have into it, and now we can heal off the pillar as well, so that's pretty good. just focus on the pillar. Almost got it down. Pillars don't actually attack themselves. They do have areas where they change the area around them, but they don't really attack themselves. So, okay, so we got our fragments, and you might notice the message, your mind goes numb. That is to a precursor to the Moon Lord. We'll get to him soon enough. But we just want to focus on getting these fragments. How many did we get? We got 60 fragments. That's really good. Expert mode does increase the amount of drops from that. So we'll head back to our base. And since we put down our manipulator, we can go ahead and create our weapons. So before we can get any other items, we have enough for weapons. Okay, so we have enough for both. That's really good, actually. The Nebula's Blaze is effectively an upgraded version of the Spectre Staff, so we definitely want that. We got Adept, that's not too bad, and the Nebula Arcanum is an entirely new weapon, but is extremely effective. It is kind of like a fire and forget, but also a massive improvement overall to our weaponry. Let me reforge them real quick. Adept is good, but we could get something better. Nimble, oh boy, inept, intense, deadly. Deadly's good. I will go deadly. Adept, sluggish, agile. Agile's not great. Superior. Superior's great. Okay. So now we got that. Now we have our weapons. These are the weapons we will be using to fight the Moon Lord. And I will show them off here in just a moment. We do have more fragments, and you do definitely want to hold on to those, so go ahead and throw those in like a chest. Or your piggy bank, or wherever you want to throw them. Go ahead and throw that in there, and that in there. Ooh, a traveling merchant. What a surprise. What did he got? He got some chef stuff, an anti-portal block. Interesting. And some ultraviolet torches, leopard skin, nothing exceptional from him. So effectively, as I stated, the Nebula Blaze is effectively an upgraded version of the Spectre Staff. It fires little fists that home into enemies very fast and massively damaging. As you can see, it's a very fast speed, uses 11 mana, and it does so much damage. So the other weapon we got is the Nebula Arcanum. Now, the Nebula Arcanum is similar to the Magnet Sphere, but it is not a replacement for it. The Nebula Arcanum shoots out these little nebulas, and they seek on enemies and explode once they hit them. Very, very strong as well. However, they do explode on the enemies, meaning that after they explode, I think a couple of times? I'm not sure. I don't think it's just once, but I think it's a couple. Yeah, they actually explode, so they get rid of themselves, unlike the Magnet Sphere, which persists. So this is kind of the loadout we want to have. And that music means that we're near a tower. As you can see, we're just going to kind of wreck them now. We're going to want to throw out our Nebula Blazes, our Nebula Arcanums. As you can see, once you get enough of them on the screen, then you can just fill up entire screens and just destroy enemies. The most dangerous enemies for the Stardust Pillar are definitely the squid-looking enemies, because they shoot out like a shotgun blast when they die, and it's very damaging. It does a lot of damage. Avoid that. If we can get our Nebula Arcanums going, we will have enough damage that we won't even really need to worry. Because we'll be healing back from our Nebula Arcanums. So the downside to the Nebula Arcanums is that they're slow. As you can see, it's sometimes better to just start throwing out Nebula Blazes, especially if you're moving quickly enough, because of how much more effective that is at seeking down enemies. Downside to both of these is that because they cost so much more mana, you may be running into mana issues. You should be okay. Nebula Arcanums are my favorite of the two weapons you can get at this point. So I'll be using the Nebula Arcanums mostly. When you're using the Nebula Arcanums, I found it's best to like circle your enemies, whether it's like go above or below them, just circle them, because then that allows the Nebula Arcanums to home in a little bit better, kind of get on top of them in a more effective way. But sometimes the homing of the Nebula Arcanums just isn't good enough, and you need to pull out the Nebula Blaze to deal with a pesky enemy. Let me throw out a Magnet Sphere. You do still want to throw out Magnet Spheres every... Magnet Spheres, not magnet spheres every now and then, just to get that extra bit of damage. But against particularly the Moon Lord, who can move fairly quickly, and a lot of these enemies, it may not be as effective. So you may want to just stick with the Nebula Arcanums or the Nebula Blazes. As you can see, we're doing alright. Killing our enemies fairly quickly, and the major benefit of the Nebula Arcanum is because of its slower fire rate, and even though it uses a large amount of mana, because it uses it so efficiently, you really don't use up much mana when you're using it. So you can kind of become... oh, well, if I hadn't just got stuck on that enemy there, I would have said you could kind of just become mana negative, meaning that you don't use your mana fast enough for it to matter. I got stuck on that enemy because my slime mounts kept bouncing up and down on it. That was annoying. And he was just kind of wrecking me in the process. Alright. So yeah, the new enemies do have banners. The downside to it is that the order of these towers spawning is random. So every time you start the lunar events, they will always spawn in these exact locations that they did. But at the same time, they will only they will spawn in a random order. In other words, there will be a pillar, always a pillar where the Nebula pillar was, but it won't necessarily be the Nebula pillar that's there, if that makes any sense. So, slight problems, not too big of a problem though. Okay, got our weapons. Start tossing them out. Wow, that's a lot of Stardust cells. So Stardust cells are pretty damaging enemies. As you can see, if you break them down, they break into like smaller bits. And there's even a period where they will become tiny for a little bit, but if they have time, they will regenerate to their full size. In other words, a larger size, if you don't destroy them in time. So you do want to pump out as much damage onto them as possible. Though I do think regardless they count towards the shield, so maybe the regenerate isn't terrible? I don't know. I kill because it's really hard to stay alive if you don't. As you can see, they kind of just stopped and then they get bigger again. Very odd separation, and it's kind of cool. No enemy, I don't think, in the game aside from that does that. Could be wrong though. I'm pretty sure they're the only enemy that does that though. So we're just going to be switching back and forth between these two weapons, depending on whether or not their enemies are too fast for the Nebula Arcanums to hit, or whether or not they're slow enough for the Nebula Arcanums to hit. As you'll see, once we unshield the pillar, our Nebula Arcanums will go to town and do so much damage that it'll be kind of insane. Our Nebula Blaze does a lot of damage already as well, so we've really got a lot of damage coming out. So as you can see, we're just destroying the pillar. The pillar's just going to absolutely melt in a second. Once all our Nebula Arcanums go. Oh. Yeah, and there it goes. Much, much quicker than using the Spectre Staff. Kind of insanely so. And now we've got our Stardust Fragments. Now, so the reason why you want to get the Stardust Fragments second is because it'll allow you to get a summon. And summons are just extra DPS, as I've talked about before, regardless of what class you're using. So we're definitely going to want to go that route. Destroy him. Okay. Now let's head back to our base and we'll go ahead and make the summons. Now you can make 2 summons, and I'm going to state real quickly that I think the best one is definitely not the Stardust Cell, but the Stardust Dragon. Now it looks like the Stardust Cell does a whole lot more damage, and technically it does. The Stardust Dragon is, in my opinion, just slightly better because it has a interesting mechanic. So I'll go ahead and make them both because we have enough for both. So the way the Stardust Dragon works is its damage actually scales depending on how many enemies, or how many summon slots you have. So you only can ever summon 1 Stardust Dragon, so I'll go ahead and summon it. You only summon 1, but when you get more summon slots, it becomes longer. Now this is important because not only does it go through walls, unlike the Stardust Cells, I'll go ahead and show them off. Stardust Cells do not go through walls, as you can just see. They get stuck on walls and whatnot. Oh, sorry. Oh, forgive me. A little bit of phlegm in there. talking too fast. The Stardust Dragon does not get stopped by walls, but it also homes on enemies and will effectively melee them to death, the same way a worm would. The Stardust cells kind of... Did I say Stardust Cells or Stardust Dragon? Well, whatever. I meant the Stardust Dragon. The Stardust Dragon is just overall, in my opinion, has a slightly better AI for dealing with that sort of stuff. The only downside of the Stardust Dragon is the fact that it doesn't home onto fast enemies quite as good. But that's okay because it goes through walls, and that's the important bit. The Stardust Cell Staff, while quite good, does not go through walls. It does attach little cells to the enemies, which then do damage over time. However, in my opinion, I just don't think that's as good as the Stardust Dragon. Now, you can refute that, and maybe with less summon slots, the Stardust Dragon isn't as good, but dragons are cooler, I'll just be honest. Let's go with Deadly. Deadly works. So we'll go ahead and use the Stardust Dragon here. And we'll take our Stardust Cell Staff and our Optic Staff and go ahead and throw those in a chest. We'll go ahead and quick stack those. Go ahead and throw those into there. Okay, I'll throw those in there. Alright, so you'll see how effective the dragon is very shortly when we go fight the Solar Pillar. We're going to probably die a lot fighting the Solar Pillar. Even if you're melee, the Solar Pillar is just bad, and you'll see what I mean. But yeah, the dragon will be great for fighting the Moon Lord as well. Probably my preferred pick for the Moon Lord, aside from maybe another pick you can get later on. Alright, so this is the Solar Pillar, and you do not want to get far off the ground if possible, because those centipede-like enemies will come after you. And they are very dangerous. You can get a little bit off the ground for like a jump, but you cannot get very far off the ground. Oh my gosh, we're already getting overwhelmed. A lot of the enemies in the Solar Pillar rush you once they go very, very fast towards you, meaning that very, very dangerous. We're gonna just keep throwing out Nebula Arcanums because we're gonna die otherwise. If we have enough Nebula Arcanums, we can just kind of run into the cloud, and most of the enemies here are melee, so they will rush us, but we will be able to avoid them thanks to the melee. Yeah, we're actually doing better than I thought. You can see that the Stardust Dragon is kind of running around, and he just kind of sits on top of enemies and does continuous damage against them. And it's very effective. So that's just my preferred pick. There used to be a situation where you prefer the Stardust Cell Staff, because the Stardust Dragon would cause invulnerability frames. That was in a former version of Terraria, I think before Journey's End, but that's no longer the case. Now, just go ham. Use the Stardust Dragon. Dragons are cool anyway. As you can see, just even like 2 hits and we're almost dead. As you can see, the Solar Pillar also shoots out like magma balls. The Solar Pillar in general is just bad. I just took 200 damage from that magma ball. And I'm dead. So yeah, the Crawltipede saw that I was just too high above the ground and instantly dove for me, and I think he did like... I couldn't really see for certain, but I think it was like 400 to 500 damage. Crawltipedes are terrifying. They can almost one-shot you. That's why you really want to stay on the ground. I know it's to promote like the melee pillar. You're supposed to be melee to kill the melee pillar, but man, it's difficult. It's hard. It is exceptionally hard. I think it might be best for us to use the Nebula Blaze, but we'll go through so much mana so fast with the Nebula Blaze that I'm not sure if it's more damage than the Arcanum. As soon as we hear that music, yep, we're just gonna start throwing out Nebula Arcanums. Because we know that the enemies are coming. We know they're coming. And just keep running. Just keep running. There's no really good way to fight the Solar Pillar. At least not that I've found. There's some strategy to it, but I've never found a way that's effective enough. And I'm about to die again. Oh my gosh. Crawltipede, no. Oh, okay. As you can see, the Solar Pillar is just... I'd say that the Solar Pillar might even be harder than the Moon Lord itself. I'm not positive on that, but gosh, the Solar Pillar sucks. I don't think any of the other pillars are as difficult as the Solar Pillar, honestly. There's definitely a massive, like, tuning difference there. The solar pillar is just radically harder. Yeah, I think just in general, of the pillars, it's definitely just the worst. Hands down. I wish it was not the case, but it is. So I feel bad for anybody who uses melee because, gosh, they have to deal with this. This is no bueno. It's specifically like these meteorite things that kind of chase you down, combined with the crawltipedes. God, that's bad. Go ahead, blow them up, blow them up. Let me throw in a magnet sphere, even though I know the magnet sphere probably won't be that effective, but I gotta try. Gotta try and stay alive just a little bit. The one benefit to the solar pillar is that it spawns enemies so fast that you do take its shield down fairly quickly. But gosh, as you can see, crawltipede coming after me. It immediately loses interest when you get close enough to the ground. Okay. I don't have another potion, do I? Okay, I need to back up. Get some more healing from my nebula blazes. Man, the fireballs from these knight-like enemies are annoying. The Drakons? Okay, the pillar's free. We're gonna start shooting the pillar now. Just try and destroy it as fast as possible. There we go. Wrecked. Nice. Okay, so many enemies. All of them terrifying. As you can see, the crawltipedes can also only be damaged by hitting that end of their tail there. So they're even more annoying because of that. Alright. Honestly, the fact that we managed to get out of there with only having to die twice was impressive. Magic, OP. Magic, really OP. I could make some melee weapons, but honestly, I don't think that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to really worry about that. There are two melee weapons you can make. One of them is called the Daybreak, and the other one is called, I don't remember off the top of my head. It's not called that, but I just don't remember what the other one's called off the top of my head. It's like a whip lance thing, and it could go through walls. It's a very effective weapon. I'd probably say it's even better than the Daybreak. The Daybreak is like a spear that you can throw that constantly returns to you. You can throw just like infinite spears, effectively. So they're both ranged-ish options. I know that the whip-like weapon that could go through walls was exceptionally effective at one point for fighting the Moonlord, because the Moonlord's attacks used to not go through walls. Yeah, right. The Moonlord's attacks didn't go through walls. How effective was the Moonlord? Just build a box. But that's how it kind of was. Now they do go through walls, so less effective. And also just kind of annoying in comparison. So this is the Vortex Pillar. Vortex Pillar is kind of weird. Not exceptionally hard, but not exceptionally easy. It sometimes spawns lightning to shock you, so just don't stay in one spot too often. You can see that as the lightning that spawns. The enemies here are mostly ranged or flying, so yeah. Stay away from as much as possible. Let's go ahead and start throwing out Nebular Cannons instead, so we don't have to use up so much mana. Thankfully, because of the fact that we have the increased range on our stuff, we can increase pickup range for stars, so we can be pretty far away from the mana stars and still pick them up. Which is pretty good. Let's not get too close. We're getting way too close to a lot of enemies here. Let's go ahead and throw out a magnet sphere. Go in with a nebula or blazon. The Nebula Blaze is a really cool concept for a weapon. It's like a magical fist that you throw out fists for. I always thought it was just kind of neat, but I love the Nebular Cannons look. It's like a sphere that you hold and use to throw out galaxies. Homing galaxies. It's just so cool. I love this game. Terraria is definitely a masterpiece. I can't really speak enough about it. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. If you do get hit by certain enemies, you get affected by ungravity or reverse gravity or whatever. You just kind of get like hovered up and down. You can't control whether or not you're going up or down. Very annoying. But not usually a problem. And you can kind of see that this tower or pillar is not super threatening if you just stay away from enemies. Because it's the ranged pillar, as long as you're at range, pretty effective against most of the enemies here. Against melee characters, this pillar is actually kind of annoying, because the enemies have shotguns, and they do a lot of damage, or at least a good amount of damage. So yeah, not a big fan of them, for sure, but at the very least, not too problematic. Blazes, because our cannons are just kind of too slow to catch the enemies. Or at least, most of the enemies. Most of the enemies we were fighting right there, at the very least. Okay. The enemies do teleport in, that is one thing to be warned of as well. I forgot about that. The enemies for the Vortex Pillar teleport in, meaning that they just kind of appear. And they can appear very close to you, so definitely something to avoid, if at all possible. Alright. So I'm sure you saw the messages that we've been getting for our pillars. If not, we've been getting a lot of messages for each of the pillars. You get a message for showing you that the Moon Lord's about to appear, or going to appear once you destroy all the pillars. And so the last one was Impending Doom approaches. So once the message Impending Doom appears, the screen starts going this weird vibraty effect, and that signifies that you only have a minute before the Moon Lord appears. So that means you have a minute to get ready. So this is why you want to kind of get your pillars first, because then you don't have to deal with the Moon Lord just coming and wrecking your face. And so we're just going to keep bashing our head against the Moon Lord. We're going to throw on our mask instead of the hood, because it's going to be better for us. I'm going to go ahead and buff up, and we're going to hope, against all hope, that we're ready for the Moon Lord. I think there's only a couple items that we could have gotten to buff up our kit here, to make ourselves a little bit better. So I think we're good, and we're just going to hope. Because if not, then we're just gonna keep defeating the lunar events. Okay, so this is the Moon Lord. He's got 3 eyeballs, which are his 3 weak points, and you just gotta go to town. Just destroy them. He does one attack in particular, which is exceptionally deadly, and we need to avoid that attack, and it's the laser. That laser. Okay, we want to teleport around that laser, especially if you've got a Rod of Discord. It's exceptionally helpful here. You want to take down all the eyeballs. He has 2 in his hands and 1 on his forehead before you can actually fight his final phase. Oh boy. Okay. We're going to teleport. Avoid the eyeballs, best of our ability. Oof. Okay, so the only healing you can get from this boss is through potions. And we're going to teleport out. If you get too far away from the Moon Lord, there is something that happens. So there it is. Teleport. Probably die here. Let's see. 31 seconds. We might have enough to regen. We'll see. If we get hit by any projectile at this point, we're probably going to die. We just want to kind of stay away from him to the best of our ability. He'll teleport to us every now and then. That's okay. We just want to teleport away from him. Just kind of stay at his maximum range to the best of our ability. You can see that that tendril that comes in prevents us from getting healing effects, which is specifically designed to fight against... oh my gosh. I was hoping to get in more damage, but... oh, oof. So that is the Moon Lord. He's tough. He is anything but easy, especially your first time around, and that is who we're going to be going up against. From here on out, I'm going to just create Celestial Sigils, or whatever they're called. I think they're called Celestial Sigils, I could be wrong. So we're going to go ahead and quick stack to nearby chests. I'm going to take dump this stuff off. And instead of having to watch me fight all the lunar events again, because you just watch me do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to other worlds that I've previously fought the Moonlord on a bunch of times, and the lunar events in particular, and create some boss summoning items. So now that we've gotten these fragments, we can create a cool hook. We could also create, like I said, the Daybreak and the Solar Eruption. That's the whip-like weapon I was talking about previously. You could also create for the Ranger the Phantasm, which is a bow that rains down arrows, or the Vortex Bleeder. Forgive me, Beater. The Vortex Beater. It's a gun that shoots bullets, but it also has a secondary of shooting rockets. Very effective. So the Celestial Sigils are what I'll be using to summon the Moonlord here on out. In the next episode, I'm just going to have a bunch of these from previous worlds that I've been on, and I'm just going to keep fighting the Moonlord until I defeat him. I might expand my arena, maybe add some more stuff in up there. What would I want to do otherwise? I think that's it. Overall, I felt like we outran him pretty good, thanks to our rod. I feel like we just need to fight him a bunch of times to really get it out. So, yeah. In the next episode, we're just going to fight him a bunch until I can manage to kill him. And then from there on out, it's kind of a secret. I don't want to really talk about what I'm going to be doing after that, but I will eventually talk about it. So yeah, that ends this episode for now, and we're just gonna fight the Moonlord in the next episode until I can beat him. I hope it won't take more than like 1 or 2 attempts. I'm praying. Anyway, until then, see ya.